$3, that's all I have for my birthday cake. The young black woman's whisper barely reached the bakery clerk, who looked down at the crumpled bills with genuine sorrow. Outside, snow fell on the quiet street, muffling the sounds of the city, while inside, Nia Carter sat frozen in her wheelchair, staring at the smallest cake in the display case. 22 years old, her birthday, and she couldn't even afford a single celebration. Then the door burst open, bringing winter air and laughter as a man and his daughter entered, changing everything in ways none of them could imagine. Nia had once been a promising music student at the Eastbrook Conservatory of Music, her professors predicting a brilliant future as a concert pianist. Her fingers possessed a rare gift, translating emotion into melody with an authenticity that made audiences weep. She practiced 8 hours daily, lived and breathed music, built her entire identity around the piano bench where she felt most alive. Then came the night that shattered everything. A drunk driver, a red light ignored, the sound of crushing metal that still haunted her dreams. When she woke 3 weeks later in the hospital, the doctors delivered their verdict with clinical detachment, complete paralysis below the waist. She would never walk again. Her parents had died when she was 12, victims of another car accident that seemed to mock her current situation with cruel irony. Her grandmother had raised her after that, Grandma Ruth Carter, a woman whose strength came from surviving the Depression and who taught Nia that dignity mattered more than money. "Hold your head high," she would say, brushing Nia's thick coils before school, her weathered brown hands gentle and sure. "Rich or poor, you're still my granddaughter, and that means something." But cancer had taken Grandma Ruth just months after Nia's accident, as if the universe had decided to strip away every support, every comfort, every reason to keep fighting. Now Nia existed rather than lived in a studio apartment, where mice scratched in the walls and the radiator clanged like a ghost in chains. The building housed society's forgotten ones, elderly people on fixed incomes, disabled veterans, single mothers working 3 jobs. Nia fit right in with her disability checks that barely covered rent and her online piano students who often canceled last minute. She taught them through a laptop screen, her brown fingers demonstrating on a cheap keyboard bought from a pawn shop. The real piano. Her grandmother's beautiful upright with its rich mahogany finish had been sold to pay medical bills. That loss had hurt almost as much as losing the use of her legs. Friends had evaporated like morning mist after her accident. College classmates had tried initially, visiting with forced cheer and bundles of flowers that died within days, but young people didn't know how to handle tragedy that couldn't be fixed with a party or motivational quote. They wanted to discuss internships and dating apps, not wheelchair accessibility and chronic pain. Nia understood. At 22, she wouldn't have known how to be friends with herself either. The loneliness had become a constant companion, more reliable than any human had ever been. Her birthday had always been special when Grandma Ruth was alive. Nothing elaborate. Just homemade cake with buttercream frosting and off-key singing. Maybe a small gift wrapped in reused paper, but it had been acknowledgement that she mattered, that her existence was worth celebrating. This year, she had decided to create her own celebration. For weeks, she had saved coins and crumpled bills, skipping meals, turning down the heat despite winter's bite. $3 accumulated slowly, hidden in an envelope marked with a drawn heart. She had seen the cake yesterday through the bakery window, the smallest one on display, perfect in its simplicity. $4. She had counted her money 7 times, as if desperation might somehow multiply it. Mathematics remained unmoved by human need. Malcolm Reed stood at 6 feet tall, his dark brown skin and close-cropped hair giving him a distinguished appearance despite the casual clothes. Despite being worth several $1 million from his tech company that specialized in cybersecurity, he dressed like any other suburban father, worn jeans, flannel shirt, comfortable boots. He had learned long ago that money couldn't buy the things that mattered. It couldn't bring back his wife Amara, who had died 4 years ago from a brain aneurysm when Laila was only 2. It couldn't erase the image of the hospital room where he had said goodbye, holding their daughter while his world collapsed around him. Laila was his universe now, a bright, chattering 6-year-old with her mother's warm brown eyes and infectious smile, her hair styled in neat twists, adorned with colorful beads that clicked softly when she moved. She had her mother's compassion too, always noticing when someone was sad, always trying to help in her earnest way. Today, he had brought her to the bakery because she had been selected as Student of the Week in kindergarten, and he had promised her any treat she wanted. The media called him the city's most eligible bachelor CEO, but he avoided their attention, focusing instead on board meetings and bedtime stories, on quarterly reports, and Laila's artwork that covered his office walls. Laila bounded toward the display case, her winter coat unzipped despite Malcolm's earlier protests about catching cold. "Daddy, look at all the cakes. Can we get 2? 1 for now and 1 for later?" She pressed her nose against the glass, leaving small fog circles. Her kindergarten teacher, Ms. Grant, had named her Student of the Week for helping a classmate who spoke no English, spending recess teaching her new words. Malcolm had promised any treat she wanted. He watched her deliberate with the seriousness of a judge, weighing chocolate against vanilla, sprinkles against frosting roses. "That one," Laila pointed decisively at a chocolate cake with rainbow decorations, with star candles, the sparkly ones that don't blow out easy. As Ms. Evelyn, the bakery clerk, a kind woman who had owned this place for 20 years, began boxing their selection, Laila's attention shifted to the young woman maneuvering her wheelchair toward the door. Not the wheelchair itself caught her interest, but the sadness that seemed to radiate from her like cold from ice. Laila had a friend who used a wheelchair, so the equipment didn't faze her. But sadness always did. "Wait," Malcolm said softly, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed, but gentle enough not to startle. Nia paused, her hand on the wheel, unsure if he was addressing her. Their eyes met across the small space, and in that moment, something shifted in the air between them. Invisible but undeniable, the bakery felt warmer suddenly. Or perhaps that was just Nia's embarrassment, heating her deep brown cheeks as the handsome stranger approached her wheelchair. She wanted to flee, to avoid whatever pity was about to be offered, but the snow outside had intensified, and she had nowhere else to go anyway. "I couldn't help but overhear," Malcolm said, crouching down to her eye level, a gesture that surprised her with its thoughtfulness. Most people stood above her, literally talking down, making her neck ache from looking up. "Today's your birthday?" His voice held no pity, just genuine curiosity, as if birthdays in bakeries during snowstorms were natural conversation starters. Nia nodded, unable to trust her voice. The kindness in his eyes threatened to break through her carefully constructed defenses. Laila had abandoned the cake display and now stood beside her father, studying Nia with the uninhibited curiosity of childhood. "You're pretty," the little girl announced with the blunt honesty only children possess. "Why are you in that chair? Did you hurt your legs? My friend Marcus has a chair too, but his has race car stickers all over it. Does yours have stickers underneath?" "Laila," Malcolm said gently, a slight grimace crossing his handsome features. But Nia found herself almost smiling at the child's directness. It was refreshing after years of adults dancing around her disability, with uncomfortable euphemisms, treating her like she was made of glass. "It's okay," Nia said, her voice stronger than expected. "I was in an accident. My legs don't work anymore, but the chair helps me get around. And no stickers, though race cars sound pretty cool. Maybe I should get some." Laila considered this information with the seriousness of a philosopher. "You should get unicorn stickers, or stars, or both." She turned to her father. "Daddy, she doesn't have stickers or a birthday cake. That's 2 problems." The child's logic was irrefutable, and she looked at her father expectantly, as if waiting for him to produce his usual magical solution to problems. Malcolm stood slowly, his mind already made up, but trying to find words that wouldn't sound condescending or make this proud young woman feel like charity. "Would you let us buy your cake as a birthday gift from strangers who believe birthdays should always have cake?" Nia's pride warred with her poverty, a familiar battle that poverty usually won through sheer exhaustion. "I couldn't. You don't even know me." The words came out as whispered protest, lacking conviction, because she wanted so desperately to say yes, to accept this unexpected kindness. "Then let's fix that," Malcolm said, extending his hand with a warm smile that transformed his serious face. "I'm Malcolm. This is Laila. Now we're not strangers. And Layla's right. Birthdays without cake are against the rules, aren't they, sweetheart?" "Absolutely against the rules," Laila confirmed with great solemnity, nodding her head so vigorously her beads clicked. "It's probably illegal. We could get arrested if we let you leave without cake." She grabbed Nia's hand with the confidence of a child who had never learned to fear rejection. "What kind do you want? The chocolate one is amazing, but Daddy says I always choose chocolate, so maybe you want something different to try." Nia felt tears threatening, the kindness overwhelming after so much time alone. "The small vanilla one," she managed, her voice thick. "The one with white frosting and the little sugar flowers." "That's the one you were looking at," Ms. Evelyn said softly, having watched the entire exchange with knowing eyes. "I'll box it up special, no charge for the birthday girl." She winked at Malcolm, who nodded gratefully and discreetly slipped a $20 bill into the tip jar while Laila wasn't looking. As Ms. Evelyn prepared both cakes with care, wrapping them in pink boxes tied with white ribbons, Laila chatted nonstop to Nia about kindergarten, her teacher Ms. Grant, who had the coolest earrings, the class hamster named Mr. Buttons, who escaped his cage every Tuesday, and how she was learning to read chapter books all by herself even though some words were still really hard. Nia found herself responding, drawn into the child's enthusiastic orbit despite her best efforts to maintain emotional distance. Malcolm watched them interact, noting how naturally Nia spoke to his daughter, not talking down to her, but engaging with her ideas. How Laila had claimed the young woman's attention with the same determination she had inherited from her mother. "Would you like to sit with us?" Malcolm asked as Ms. Evelyn handed over the boxed cakes. "We were going to have a cake celebration here. Laila insists cake tastes better with more people. Another one of her rules." Nia hesitated. This felt like crossing a line from accepting necessary charity to something more personal, more dangerous. She had learned to protect herself from hope, knowing how much it hurt when it inevitably disappointed. But Laila was already pushing a chair aside to make room for the wheelchair, chattering about which table had the best view of the snow falling outside. "Just for a few minutes," Nia agreed, telling herself it was for the child's sake. Not because the man's brown eyes held a warmth she hadn't seen directed at her in 2 years. They settled at a small table by the window, the world outside turning white and soft, like a snow globe someone had shaken. Ms. Evelyn brought plates and forks, smiling knowingly as she set them down. Laila insisted they sing Happy Birthday, her voice high and sweet, while Malcolm's baritone provided rich harmony. Other customers joined in spontaneously, creating an impromptu chorus that made Nia's carefully constructed walls begin to crack. When they finished, Laila commanded her to make a wish. Nia closed her eyes, trying to think of something small enough to be possible. Not to walk again. That was beyond even birthday magic. Not for her parents or grandmother back. Death was permanent and cruel. Maybe just for this moment to last a little longer, for the warmth of unexpected kindness to delay the cold return to her empty reality. She blew out the single candle Ms. Evelyn had added, and Laila cheered as if Nia had accomplished something magnificent. "What did you wish for?" Laila asked, then immediately covered her mouth with both hands. Wait, you can't tell or it won't come true. That's another rule. So many rules, Nia said, surprising herself by actually smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes. How do you keep track of them all? I have a list in my unicorn notebook, Laila said seriously. Daddy bought it for me after Mommy went to heaven because he said I could write letters to her in it. I write her about my day and stuff. The casual mention of death shifted the atmosphere. Nia looked at Malcolm, seeing new shadows in his eyes, understanding suddenly that she wasn't the only one at this table carrying loss like a heavy weight. I'm sorry, she said quietly. 4 years ago, Malcolm said simply, his voice rough. Brain aneurysm. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. 1 minute we were planning Sophie's birthday party. The next, he trailed off, cutting a piece of cake for Laila, his movements automatic. You learn to live around the absence, not through it or over it. Around it, like water finding its way around a stone. Nia understood exactly what he meant. My grandmother died 2 years ago, right after my accident. She was all I had left after my parents died when I was 12. That's why you were alone on your birthday, Laila said matter-of-factly. Because all your people went to heaven. That's sad. But now you have us. We can be your birthday people, right, Daddy? Malcolm looked at Nia, seeing her clearly for the first time. Not just a pretty woman in a wheelchair, not just someone needing help, but a survivor of losses that mirrored his own. Laila has decided, apparently, and she's very persistent when she makes decisions. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, the bakery warm and safe, while snow continued falling outside, covering the world in white. Nia felt something she had thought dead stirring inside her chest, dangerous and fragile as spun glass. Hope was a luxury she couldn't afford, not when disappointment waited around every corner. But sitting here with these two strangers who didn't look at her with pity, who included her as naturally as breathing, she found herself wanting to believe in possibilities again. What did you do before? Malcolm asked gently. You mentioned your accident, but what was your life like? I was studying music, Nia said, then corrected herself. No, that's not right. I was music. Piano, specifically. I lived it, breathed it, built everything around it. When the accident took my legs, it somehow took that too. I still teach a little online, but it's not the same. Playing used to be like flying. Now it's just pressing keys. Malcolm heard the grief in her voice, recognized it as the same tone he used when talking about Amara. Do you still have a piano? A keyboard, Nia admitted, shame coloring her voice. I sold my grandmother's piano for medical bills. The keyboard is functional, but it's not the same. Laila perked up, bouncing slightly in her seat. We have a piano, a big one that nobody plays anymore. It just sits there being furniture. You could play ours. Can she, Daddy? Can Nia play our piano? Malcolm saw Nia's immediate withdrawal, the way she pulled back into herself like a turtle sensing danger. Laila, Nia probably has things to do. Actually, Nia interrupted, surprising herself. I don't. Today's my birthday, and I have absolutely nothing to do except go home to my empty apartment and eat cake alone in the dark. The honesty felt reckless, but liberating. But I couldn't impose. You've already been too kind. It's not imposing if we're inviting you, Malcolm said. And Layla's right. The piano hasn't been played since, well, in years. It would be nice to hear music in the house again. So try, Laila said with the simple wisdom of childhood. If it's hard, we'll help. That's what friends do, right? Friends. The word hung in the air like a question Nia didn't know how to answer. She looked at Malcolm, searching his face for signs of pity or obligation, finding instead something that looked dangerously like genuine interest. Okay, she said, before fear could change her mind. But I'll need help getting in the car. My chair doesn't fold easily. We have a van, Malcolm said, already standing. Bought it last year when Layla's soccer team needed transportation. Plenty of room for your chair. He paused, studying her face carefully. Unless you're having second thoughts. No pressure, Nia. The drive to Malcolm's house took them through neighborhoods that gradually shifted from Nia's familiar working-class streets to tree-lined avenues where houses sat back from the road. Laila kept up a steady stream of chatter from her car seat, pointing out Christmas decorations that were already appearing. That's our house. Nia's breath caught. The house was beautiful, a 2-story colonial with white pillars and black shutters, the kind of home she had imagined living in back when the future seemed full of possibility. Malcolm pulled into the garage. "You okay?" he asked softly, correctly reading her expression. "Your house is lovely." "It's too big," Malcolm said, getting out to help with her chair. "Amara wanted a large family. We bought it planning for 4 kids, maybe 5. Now it's just Laila and me rattling around in all this space." The interior was warm and lived in despite its size. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator, Layla's toys were scattered across the living room floor, and photographs filled every surface, most featuring a beautiful woman with rich dark skin and natural hair styled in elegant locks who could only be Amara. The piano sat in what had been transformed into Layla's art studio. The piano itself was a Steinway grand, its black surface gleaming. "It needs tuning," Malcolm said apologetically. "I've been meaning to call someone for months." Nia wheeled herself to the bench, her hands trembling as she lifted the fallboard. The keys were cool under her fingers. She played a simple scale, listening to the tone, then her hands found a C major chord, and suddenly she was playing, not performing, not practicing, just playing. A simple melody at first, something Grandma Ruth used to hum while cooking Sunday dinner, then variations that grew increasingly complex as her fingers remembered their purpose. Laila stood transfixed, her mouth open in wonder. Malcolm leaned against the doorframe, watching Nia transform from a broken woman in a wheelchair to something luminous and whole. The music filled the house, chasing away shadows that had lived there for 4 years. When Nia finally stopped, her face wet with tears she hadn't noticed falling, Laila exploded into applause. "That was magic, real magic. Daddy, did you hear? It was like the house was singing." "I heard," Malcolm said quietly, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "Nia, that was extraordinary." "I haven't played like that since before," Nia said wonderingly. "I didn't think I could anymore. The music felt dead inside me. But here, with you both listening, it came back." Laila climbed onto the piano bench beside Nia. "Will you teach me? I want to make magic, too." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the piano. When evening came, Malcolm insisted Nia stay for dinner. The meal was simple, but perfect. Nia found herself laughing more than she had in months. After dinner, Laila showed Nia her room. "This is my mom." She pointed to a photo on her nightstand, Amara laughing, holding baby Laila. "She was beautiful," Nia said honestly. As Malcolm drove Nia home, he said, "Thank you for making the house feel alive again." "Thank you for the cake," Nia said, "for treating me like a person. You're a gift we didn't know we needed." 3 days later, Malcolm called. "Piano lessons twice a week. I'll pay $75 an hour." "Okay," she agreed. Weeks passed. Malcolm started joining them at the piano, his voice harmonizing with Laila's as Nia played. In December, they decorated for Christmas. When they reached Amara's glass angel, Malcolm lifted Laila to place it. "Next year you can help," Laila told Nia. That evening, Malcolm told Nia about her blog. "There was a post about saving a girl at a crosswalk. That was Laila. You saved my daughter." Nia was crying. "It's fate," Malcolm said softly. He leaned closer. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't be your project." "You're not," Malcolm said. "You're someone I'm falling for." They went slow. Their first real kiss happened after Laila's Christmas concert, snow falling around them. "I love you," he said. I love you too, she whispered back. Spring arrived. One April evening, Malcolm dropped to one knee. Will you marry me? Nia couldn't speak through her tears, so she nodded. They married in June. Malcolm carried Nia down the aisle while Laila stood as maid of honor. They opened a piano school called Harmony Rising. Nia wrote her book. This story started with a birthday wish, Nia told the crowd. I wished to matter for one day. What I got was a reminder that we all matter every day. The tradition spread. Every year they bought cake for someone who needed it. Years later, Laila wrote her college essay about finding her second mother over birthday cake. The night before college, they went to the bakery. I'm scared, Laila admitted. Good, Nia said. All the best adventures start with fear. Were you scared that day? Terrified, but I stayed. You saved us, Malcolm said. We saved each other, Nia corrected. That's what family does. On Nia's 30th birthday, she sat at the piano while Malcolm worked and Laila painted. The music filled the space, expressing what words couldn't about loss and love. Outside, snow began to fall, and Nia smiled, remembering when $3 wasn't enough for cake, but was exactly enough for everything that mattered.